Farzy, you know, sometimes when you drive around for a living, the things you see in this area and just around, I could write a book. But to the gentleman who installed an LED scrolling sign in his back window to let me know that 9/11 was an inside job and that the government is coming after me and that masks are useless, to go to that extent, I just got to give you a quick clap, because even if you're bat poop crazy, like clearly this individual is, suspending an LED scrolling sign to inform me and everyone that 9/11 was an inside job and the government is tracking us and everything. I just think good for you, because you obviously believe this quite a bit if you're going to install a scrolling sign in the back window of your car.
That is next level conspiratorial. And
yeah,
honestly, you are going to great lengths to share your conspiracy. I'm not even going to call it anything but that, with as wide an audience as you possibly can.
I just think for that person to believe so full-heartedly in anything, to do that, like, you know, there's a lot of things I believe in. I don't know if I'd suspend a scrolling electric sign in the back window of my car.
It's impressive. I saw one of those, and I'm going to forget what the name of the organization is, but it's still around. So you could Google it. It's the group that is advocating for, and I don't think they're as out of line. They're nowhere near as out of line as the guy you're just talking about, but they're advocating.
I'm not sure many are, Mike.
Good point. They're advocating for higher speed limits on the 400 series of highways. This is even before we got to the few 110s that are out there. I think it's called stop100.ca or something like that. Anyway, you can Google it if you want to. But I saw a person who I can only assume was associated with said organization driving around, and they had the website scrolling constantly on this LED screen in the back window of their vehicle. And I'm a guy that's actually pretty open to the argument of, you know, we know our roads are engineered to carry traffic at a faster speed. Why are we bothering with 100 and stuff? But to me, though, it smacks of like, that can't be legal, can it?
I don't think so.
Right.
Like, there's no way.
No,
I couldn't see in his back window. Right. It was all a sign.
And so it's not even the messaging that I'm saying needs to be banned or there has to be a charge. It's because you have something that is incredibly distracting to the drivers around you. And in this guy's case, certainly it's something that's impeding his rear view. Although we could get into the conversation of whoever looks in their rear view mirror and have a whole other podcast, I think, because nobody does, by the way.
I do all the time. My biggest thing was it's distracting other drivers, because I wanted to hang behind him just to find out what else this sign was going to say.
Absolutely.
I'm like, first thing that pops up is 9/11 was an inside job. And I'm like, okay, let's see what else this guy thinks. Like, I want to get into the mind of this creature, you know, where on earth did you come from? But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. We'd like to start off the podcast a lot of times with some things that are going on in our life. And that's just something that popped out to me from the other day. And I wanted to share it.
Well, the conspiracy part of it, you came by honestly, because just as we were getting set to hit record this week, you and I were having a little bit of a back and forth about the draft lottery, which is actually happening as we record. So before we're finished with this intro to this week's podcast, by the way, have we had as big a name as this on our podcast yet? Well, we've had some big ones. Yeah, okay. We've had Brian Kilray.
Let me remind you, Al McInnes.
Al McInnes has been on this podcast. Yeah. Fair enough. But this guy, no slouch for sure.
No, absolutely not.
As we're putting together this intro, you and I were just chatting, and you believe, erroneously, I want to stress, that it's only a 3-team.
Guess who just got the 4th overall selection?
The Niagara Ice Ducks.
Bingo.
Okay. But anyway, it was all on the up and up. Pope was convinced. Yes, listen, a lottery is a lottery. They've already paid their sanctions for the first round picks they had to sacrifice just because the Burks made another major boo-boo. And I that's putting it way too mildly. Just because they really gummed up the works again doesn't mean there were no sanctions on picks. So if they won the lottery, they won the lottery. So people were already making jokes that the London Knights were going to win the lottery when they weren't even in the lottery. You can all have your wrestling fantasies and conspiracies all you want. It was a 4-team lottery. Sorry, Niagara. You're getting the 4th pick and hopefully some new ownership.
It was a 3-team lottery. Sudbury is going to pick 3rd this year, just announced as we have the live stream up. But there was no way the OHL was going to allow Niagara to have the 1st overall selection 2 weeks after they suspended their general manager and head coach, who happened to be the sons of the majority owners of the franchise. There's no way that was going to happen. This was a 3-team lottery. You are not going to convince me otherwise. There is zero chance of the Ice Dogs getting that first pick after what they did. Zero.
Do they deserve the first pick? Absolutely not. But I believe in the human condition. I believe, rightly or wrongly, for the people in the front offices of this league, that they do things on the up and up. We might not agree with them all the time, but I believe they do them on the up and up. And unless otherwise indicated that first round picks had to be removed or they were sanctioned from having been able to make those selections, then absolutely the Ice Dogs were in the lottery. Too bad. So now we're down to Saginaw and Erie. Those are the two left.
Yes, it will be the Saginaw Spirit drafting first overall. So Dave Drinkle, Chris Lazary, the pandemic never screwed up what they had going down there big time. So now they get a little bit of relief getting that first overall selection. Now it's a question of whether it will be an exceptional pick or whether it won't be.
Okay, we're going to get to that in just a second, but really quickly, because you mentioned how the pandemic had screwed with the Saginaw Spirit. We ran into Dave Drinkle at a hockey game towards the end of the regular season, had a quick chat, and you do have to feel for him and the Saginaw Spirit, because they had loaded for bear in, I got to get my years straight here,
2017.
18-19, because then we played most of 19-20, right? So they went 18-19 and everybody thought, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen because the Guelph Storm happened. Remember, they came back from 3-0 and 3-1 down against everybody in that playoff to win the OHL championship. And that's why the Guelph Storm are still defending OHL champs. But people were all over the Saginaw Spirit that year in a good way. And if you're laying action, like you're betting on the Saginaw Spirit, they're going to come out of the West. And you remember that crazy series with the Guelph Storm?
I do.
And the puck shot out of play by the goaltender, who ends up getting himself suspended. I mean, we could go on, but the team itself had won, and so they don't make it that year. And I remember talking to Chris Lazary at the beginning of the 2019-2020 season that was ended prematurely by COVID. But he said that was, if it hadn't been for the birth of his daughter, it would have been the worst off season of his life. Like that's how hard he took that loss the previous season. And so that whole year, they were like a buzzsaw going through the league. They had won 19 of 23 going into mid-March when the league got shut down, and you just don't know. And then you have the year off. And look, they've got some nice pieces now with Minchikov and Sapovaliv, and they're going to add another big piece now, getting the first overall pick. But I think they do the things the right way. I was actually just talking with some folks about Craig Gosselin as the owner there, and everything perhaps that the Burks in Niagara are not, because we've taken our shots at Niagara already on this podcast. But I think Mr. Gosselin's been a great owner. He's kind of one of those model guys, tries really hard in a market that doesn't necessarily take to junior hockey as its first love. And they're working hard down there. So I'm happy for them. I'll just put it that way.
They are working hard. And I just wish that they would have had those 2 COVID shortened and canceled seasons to really make a push, because a championship down there would just help them out so much, right? Getting more people in the stands to follow along with the Spirit and get some young people in there. They got a great marketing tool in T-Bone Cod after missing out on Cole Perfetti's last year. And now I'm assuming they're going to take Michael Miso with the first overall selection. Just adds another piece to that rebuild in Saginaw that Dave Drinkle and Chris Lazary can use.
Okay, I want to talk more about Michael Misa because we have a point to make on that, but I want to use this opportunity to quickly remind you that as this podcast is being released on Friday, April the 22nd, you still have time. You can be reminded, build it into your schedule for Saturday, April the 23rd, because if you go to the Tim Hortons in the Deer Ridge area of Kitchener, right there on King Street East, you can pop in and help out Waterloo Region Crime Stoppers. They're selling key fob blockers so that your key fob cannot be copied, or all the gadgets that thieves have now to make a grab a copy of that and then steal your car, that sort of thing. And when you do that, you're helping out Crime Stoppers of Waterloo Region. You can always do that by just being active in your community, keeping an eye on things. 1-800-222-TIPS is a number to call if you see something that might lead police to an arrest. It's always anonymous, and you will be paid. You can take my word for this. You will be paid a cash reward for your tip if it does lead to an arrest. So a lot of great people behind this organization, they're volunteers just devoting their time to try to make their community better. So you call in 1-800-222-TIPS. It's always anonymous. You could get a cash reward. You can also go online to WaterlooCrimeStoppers.com and stop by the Deer Ridge Tim's on Saturday. Pick up one of those key fob blockers and you're helping out Crime Stoppers at the same time.
I love it. So is Michael Misa going to be a member of the Saginaw Spirit?
I could not imagine any scenario that would make it otherwise. He's the sixth exceptional player to be granted early entry, as I like to call it, into the Ontario Hockey League, and 4 of the 5 before him, with the exception of Sean Day, went first overall. Sean went 4th to Mississauga, and that was the year, if I'm not mistaken, Konechny went first overall to the Ottawa 67. So listen, I don't have any reason to doubt that he will be the first overall selection, and we'll learn that as this podcast is being released. My only concern, and that's why I said early entry, he's coming in as a 15-year-old, and I know John Tavares started that train of 15-year-olds coming in, the most recent, being Shane Wright. I'm not disputing for 1 second that these players are hockey ready for the next level, instead of just, scoring 175 points playing with their peers at the age of 15. Let's let them move up a level. Let's try against some kids that are 20 years old in this league and see how they do and give them that challenge. I just wish we would change the language. And I know if we get right into the language of it, you are an exception to the rule, but the way most people look at exceptional player, you have some sort of exceptional skill. You are an exceptional human being. No, he's just another 15-year-old that's really, really good at hockey. Let's change exceptional player status to early entry and take one layer of the pressure off the kid. I'd love to see it happen.
And I've agreed with you in the past on this, but I'm starting to disagree with you for one reason and one reason only. It doesn't matter what we call it. I feel like we're nitpicking. We could call it the blue balloon player. It doesn't matter, because that player's still going to feel the pressure of being an underage player in the OHL. Whether you call it exceptional, whether you call it early entry, I don't think the terminology really matters, because that player is still going to feel the pressure. The media is still going to be around the player. Other players are still going to make reference to it on the ice when you're playing against them. That pressure is always going to be there for that player, no matter what we call the status. The minute we allowed a player into the league as an underage player, that pressure is there. And it doesn't matter what player comes through, whether it's Sean Day, whether it's Connor McDavid, whether it's Michael Misa, whether it's an exceptional player, whether it's blue balloon player, that pressure is going to be on that player. And that's why the OHA and the OHL and the CHL go through such a lengthy interview process with not just the player, but his family, his coaches, and so on and so forth, to make sure that the individual not only can hack it on the ice, but that they are able to handle the pressure that comes with an early entry underage player playing in the OHL.
So let me put it to you this way, because I hear where you're coming from, and I get it. But that's why when I talk about early entry versus exceptional, I say let's remove the one layer of pressure, because you're right. The kid's under a ton of pressure in a variety of other ways. So let me put it to you this way. And I'm going to pretend that you're a complete moron. I'm just pretending.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's pretend you're a complete moron. And I said to you, hey, did you hear what Superman did yesterday? And you don't know anything about Superman, right? But you hear the name Superman. Okay. Doesn't that conjure something in your head? Because you hear the name Superman. He's a super. Okay. So if I said to you then too, did you hear what Clark Kent did the other day?
Who's Clark Kent?
Right. So if you have early entry, or if you have exceptional player, even Joe and Jane average, when they hear exceptional player, their mind goes to a different place. Just like when you hear Superman, oh, he's a super human being, as opposed to, oh, he was granted early entry to the Ontario Hockey League. Simple as that.
See, I think if you said, oh, he's an exceptional player, people would be like, well, what's that mean? But if you said, oh, he has early entry, then their brain goes, oh, early entry. Well, he must be pretty good to get that early. That's what I mean. It doesn't matter what we call it, because even if you said let's say it was the blue balloon player, let's go along with it. If I said, hey, did you hear what Michael Misa did yesterday? Oh, who's that? Oh, he's the blue balloon player. Oh, is he? You know, it's going to make everyone's head turn. Oh, okay. So this kid must be good. It comes with pressure. But if you're applying for that status, whatever that status may be, you know the pressure is going to be there. You're applying for it. You're asking for that pressure to be put on you. That's why these interviews are so in depth and why they go to the lengths they do to secure their own selves and knowing that this player can handle it. Because that's kind of my point. It doesn't matter what we call it, whether it's exceptional, early entry, blue balloon. It's going to come with pressure, and it's going to come with eyes, and it's going to come with people talking about you. Think back to John Tavares in this league, even McDavid. Over the course of his career, their careers, by the end of their OHL career, people were starting to nitpick their game and find things wrong with it and be like, well, he's not that good of a skater. Well, how's his 200-foot game really? It's good. That's why he was given this status. That's why he's going to go early in the NHL draft, thinking of Tavares and McDavid. But so there's going to be that pressure, and you have to be able to handle it no matter what you call it.
Can I just do a quick aside here based on what you just said?
Please.
I love that we do that. It's one of the things I love about sports in general, that we are, from the age of 15 in some cases, demanding excellence, so that at some point we might be nitpicking a minor part of a player's game because we expect the player to be here and maybe he's just a little bit below that, or she. I love the fact that we still, at some level, particularly in sport, demand excellence. It is a results-oriented business. You don't give us the results, you're out of the business. I kind of like that. Brief aside.
I don't, because it's one thing to demand excellence. How many people are at that level, though? Like, well, Shane Wright should be able to have 2 weeks off where he's just not the best player in the world. Like, he's allowed to do that, especially at this age. Like, if I'm just concentrating on the OHL, like, yeah, but you like, and it's probably detrimental to my career to say it, but I think like there's almost too much media around athletes because they don't get a night off. They don't, like, you're allowed to go and do the Mike Farwell show. And if you have a Wednesday that, you know, like that you would probably admit, I don't know if today was a good show or not, I didn't listen, but if it's like, oh, I wasn't on today, I didn't have my best stuff, that's allowed to happen. But nobody's sitting there writing articles being like, oh, Farwell was terrible today, blah, 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 blah. There's all that added pressure. And then when you bring in someone like Michael Misa, who we're talking to, just imagine the pressure on this kid. Because if he comes into the league and he's got 5 points by Christmas, he's getting torched for no reason.
Well, no, there'd be a reason for that. I'm sorry, 15 years old or not, if you've got 5 points in the first 30 odd games of your OHL career, you're not performing up to standards. Sorry for your luck.
Sure.
And
I get it.
I'm not saying like, of course they're allowed the 2 weeks or the slump of whatever kind. I'm just saying, bigger picture, if you don't perform at a certain level over the long term, somebody who can is going to take your spot. And I'm kind of okay with that. So yeah, I'm allowed a bad Wednesday on the show. And make no mistake, while people don't write a lot of articles about AM radio hosts anymore, oh, the internet's a fun place. And so true. I get to know in real time how good or bad a job I'm doing. But if I, over the long term, and you know this as well as I do, if I don't do enough, if I don't do more good shows than bad shows, and my ratings go down, guess what? They will show me the door and bring in somebody who can get the ratings that they need to survive as a company. Honestly, I'm so okay with it, and I kind of like it a bit.
I'm okay with it too, in a sense, but I just think we all need to be reminded sometimes that these are 16 to 20-year-olds. If Mike Farwell sitting in the Mike Farwell show chair at 18 years old had a bad Wednesday and heard the things that you hear now, how would you have dealt with it?
Again, agree with you. And so I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination punt a player from this league, but they might not make it to the NHL because, and I know it's pressure, I get it, but again, that's kind of what I like. If you want to go to the National Hockey League, which, as good as some of the European, like Swedish elite and other leagues are still, we know the National Hockey League is the very best of the very best. You want to be among that group of 700 or so players, you got to go out and earn it. And we're going to demand excellence all the way along. Again, there's a part of me, I know it makes me a bit of a-hole, but I kind of like it.
I get it. And I understand where you're coming from. I just think it's important for people to remember that there are players in the OHL right now who maybe are in their second, first, or third year, maybe even fourth year. And they're identifying their own game well enough that, hey, I'm probably not going to make the NHL. So let's get my education package here. Let's go and have some fun playing competitive hockey, get some eyes on me. I might go to Europe. Maybe I'll just go to Waterloo University, graduate in mathematics, and start working in the NHL as a stat guy. I don't know.
Sure, but very few people, smart. Very few media people are writing articles or doing podcasts about those players. Right? There's just that certain group that we're all expecting things out of. Like you don't think there was pressure on Wyatt Johnston this year as he tore up the league with 124 points?
Absolutely. Right. NHL drafted player. I would expect that pressure.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah. I just sometimes think we're too hard on them sometimes.
That's where we're going to differ.
I say myself too, because you expect so much from these 16, 17-year-olds. And it's like, well, he's been terrible the last 5 games. Okay. What else is going on in his life? Does he, does he have a big exam coming up? Are his parents okay? Is he struggling being away from, there's so many things that go into it, and they're already under a lot of pressure. I just feel like sometimes it would probably better the player and the person if they were allowed to take a deep breath every now and then, especially with the amount. I'm not talking about Johnny third line. I'm talking about Shane Wright. I'm talking about Michael Misa. I'm talking about Luke Evangelista, all these guys who are under so much pressure. And that pressure is going to come when they're multi-million dollars on the line. Keep in mind, these are student athletes right now. That's all. I think there's room for criticism and room for expectation, but there also should be room to remember what we're dealing with.
Couldn't agree more. Slumps are allowed for sure. I'm talking about the long-term track of a player, be it at this level or in the pros, right? You're going to get demoted if you're not putting up the numbers. You're going to get cut if nobody's going to offer you a contract in the pros if you're not putting up the numbers. And that's absolutely not exclusive to hockey, right? That's
the minute you get to the pro ranks, all bets are off. Like you're getting paid, you have to do a job. They expect a job. It's just like any job in the world, except in this one, there's a lot more pressure, a lot more scrutiny, and they can get rid of you a lot easier.
So the pressure is obviously on for for 16 of the OHL. I was going to say every OHL team, but no. Congratulations again to the Saginaw Spirit, who have won the draft lottery and will select first, along with the Spirit, the Erie Otters, so 2 of the 3 U.S.-based teams, Sudbury Wolves and Niagara Ice Dogs. Outside looking in, the other 16 are about to embark on the playoffs. And Popper, I got to tell you that it feels to me, and I don't know why, it's just a gut feeling, maybe because it's just been that strange season that it's been ever since. Like, this is our first playoff since 2019. Like, it's so hard to imagine. We were so close to the playoffs when COVID shut things down in March of 2020. Then we had a whole season washed out. So we're getting back into it. And I just have a feeling. And maybe it's because the season was so weird. Are we playing? Are we not playing? Are there fans? Are there not fans? Whatever. This might be the time we finally see some upsets in the first round of the Ontario Hockey League playoffs, because as you well know, they're not all that common, those upsets. They're just not.
They're not at all. And I'm sure we will see I'm going to call it. We're going to see a first round upset in the OHL this year. Will it be an 8-1? Probably not. But we will see an upset in the first round this year. I think there's just too much parity. There's only a few teams that really load it up, if you will, like we've seen in the past. I'm expecting a first round upset. I don't know where, but I'm expecting one.
Yeah, I think that this is a year that's kind of ripe for it because we watched the West. I'm going to go Nick Porco on you here because he already called his shot before the playoffs even began. But I think maybe, and I love you, Brennan Othman, and I love you, Luke Cavalin, and I love you, City of Flint. But I think the Firebirds, who piled up almost 20 of their wins this regular season against Saginaw and Erie in the earlier parts of the year, might be vulnerable. And that Owen Sound team works like a dog. They are a hard-working bunch, and I think we might see the 6th-ranked Owen Sound attack in the West upend the 3rd-ranked Flint Firebirds.
I can hop on that train with you for sure. I think I said it actually at the end of our broadcast in one sound that I thought they were going to beat Flint. So maybe I should just call my shot. But I really like the way that Owen Sound team is built. I think if Nick Porco can get healthy up front, that's very important. And I think the biggest piece is if Mark Woolley gets back on their back end after suffering an injury against Windsor earlier this season. He's just he's their best player. Like, he's their big X factor on the back end. And with some question marks in goal, as good as Nick Chenard has been taking over from Matt Guzda, he hasn't been a starter for too long. That high-powered Flint offense is going to come a buzzing. And Mark Woolley can certainly help out a guy like Nick Chenard in goal by playing the way Mark Woolley does all the time.
So as much as I had the hunch that this might be a year we see some upsets, and it felt to me like they are rare, I decided to look into it. And they might even be more rare than I thought. Only 4 times, Poper, only 4 times in the past decade has there been a first round upset in the Ontario Hockey League. And in fairness, I didn't look at point totals at the end of the season. I just looked at 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5, etc. And I didn't count 5/4 as an upset. It could have been a 20-point difference on a particular year, so take it for what it is. But just looking at the matchups, only 4 times in a decade. And the way you put it then, when I told you that, you said that's 4 out of 80 series. That makes it sound even crazier. But you have to go back to 2016 to find the last time that it happened, when the 7th ranked Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds beat the number 2 ranked Sarnia Sting. It went 7, but that was that Sarnia team that loaded up. They had Travis Konechny, they had Jordan Kyrou, they had Pavel Zacha, and they lost in the first round to the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds with Blake Spears. Zachary Sinishin was on that team. A young Boris Kachuk was a part of that Sioux team. But nonetheless, 7/2 in 2016 was the last time it happened. And if you want to find an 8/1, you better go do some digging, because you got to go all the way back to 2005 when Greg Gilbert was coaching the Mississauga Ice Dogs, and he and Patrick O'Sullivan lost in the first round as the first seed to the number 8 Toronto St. Michael's Majors and Darryl Boyce. James Boyd was an associate coach with that Toronto St. Mike's team, but there you go.
I don't think we're going to see an 8-1 this year. Windsor and Hamilton just too good in both conferences. I really think the East is just going to come down to Hamilton and North Bay, with all due respect to Kingston and Mississauga. I think Mississauga, if Matt Guzda can get back to Barrie, that's going to be a really good series to watch. Both Mississauga and Barrie, I think, 2 teams that that not a lot of people talk about, but 2 teams that could win any series, and I wouldn't be shocked with some of the personnel. Obviously, Brant Clark not being there for Barrie hurts, but
yeah, and I really liked the addition of Tyson Forster for obvious reasons when he was returned very generously, and that Barrie team just seems to be. It's almost like depends on the night, right? Yeah. They're world beaters one night, and then exactly the opposite another night. But they're a bit of a wild card to me in the Eastern Conference, just like Flint is in the West, just because the way the season started and with the matchups they had. I'm not sure, and that's why I think there might be upsets around this year, because I'm not sure we really know who anybody is. If you had one opponent's number this year, you could have racked up 10 wins, right, against that one team. So
Sarnia's kicking themselves that they didn't pass Kitchener for 7th.
Yes,
because they had London's number this year.
Absolutely.
And now they're in tight against a very good, very, very good Windsor Spitfires team that seems to just put it all together at the right time. Are they ever flying right now? When I look at the matchups across the OHL, there's one that stands out to me head and shoulders above the rest, and that's the 4-5 in the West, Sioux and the Guelph Storm. I want to watch every one of those games in its entirety. I doubt I'll be able to, but man, that is going to be a fun series to watch with just all the offense in that series and both teams with some good defense. Like, I just think it's going to be one heck of a series. I hope it goes 7. Give us 7 games of that. Just put it right in my veins.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like 6-4, 7-5 scores too. Yeah. I really do, because look, no disrespect to either team's goaltending, but it's not their strongest suit. You talked about the offense. Both teams can really fill the net. It's going to be a lot of fun watching them freewheel. And I think the 4-5 on the East side is looking pretty good too. We already talked about Barrie, and they certainly can gun, but Mississauga and the goaltending they've had this season Boy, oh boy, that could be really interesting. What happens when an unstoppable object meets an immovable force? It's going to be great to watch.
And just something to keep in mind on the Sioux and Storm series. The Storm brought in 3 overagers, all from the Sarnia Sting. Sarnia, Sioux have quite the rivalry.
That they do. And the Guelph Storm are the defending Ontario Hockey League champions. Until they are eliminated, they might repeat. There you go.
I wouldn't be. That's the thing about this year. At least, like, I don't. Obviously, we're not as educated on the East as we are the West because we haven't seen the East all year. We do our best, but we obviously know the Western Conference a lot more. And given the makeup of that Storm roster, I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the season, if you're like, oh, Storm are in the OHL final, I'd be, oh, yeah, they're pretty good. Like, and you could say the same about Flint, the Sioux, London, Windsor, maybe even Owen Sound. Like, the West is crazy this year. Absolutely crazy.
Boy, oh boy, all 23 of our fans in Kitchener want to punch you in the nose right now. Not even giving them consideration, eh?
Those 23 fans, I hope they watched the game. Like, what? Anything can happen, sure. I'm just saying, if I'm looking at the West, the Rangers finished 7th. They're not in the same league as Windsor, London, Sioux, Flint. Like, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. I think anybody knows that. They're going to need things to fall right in their lap, and they need to work their tail off in order to win a couple series. I hope they do. Don't get me wrong. I love paychecks. So I like money. And the longer the Rangers go, the longer I work. So this is good for me. This is obviously a rebuilding year. I don't imagine Mike McKenzie would say, yeah, we're hoping for an OHL final. By the way, 3 months ago, we traded Arbor Jacki and Declan McDonald. Like, they're obviously building for the future.
I think that for Rangers fans, if you're looking for your glass half full, look between the pipes, because both Pavel Chayon and Jackson Parsons were playing as good as we saw them play at any point during the season during the final 2 to 3 weeks. And goaltending can be an absolute series breaker. So those two guys keep rolling along like that, and you're giving yourself a chance any given night.
You mentioned goaltending. It can be the X factor in a series, especially when one team like Kitchener has it. And right now, one team like the Knights quite literally does not have their starting goalie. That is going to be the biggest question mark ahead of Thursday night in London. This will be yesterday when this is released. Is Brett Brochu ready enough to play in the postseason? And what percentage does he need to be at physically for Dale Hunter to play him? Is an 80% Brett Brochu between the pipes? My guess is yes.
Quick reminder for you. Tomorrow, Saturday, April the 23rd, stop by the Tims in the Deer Ridge area of Kitchener. Pick up your key fob blocker and support. Waterloo Regional Crime Stoppers. Look them up online, waterloocrimestoppers.com. And don't forget to use 1-800-222-TIPS to call in your anonymous tip that could pay you cash money if it leads to an arrest. Our guest on the pod this week has his share of OHL playoff experience.
And his share of tips, I'm sure, where he tipped it into the net because he scored an abundance of goals for the Kitchener Rangers. 4 years in the Ontario Hockey League, Rookie of the Year, OHL MVP. Oh, yeah, OHL Championship, Memorial Cup MVP too, second rounder to Buffalo. How about 700 games in the show, 500 plus points, then went over to Europe, did his thing over there. Now a new father, and he took some time to join OHL Stories. Ladies and gentlemen, arguably the greatest Ranger of all time. He's in the conversation. Derek Roy.
Well, I'm usually pretty anal about starting these things or trying to go in some sort of chronological order, but since Poper and I are sitting here in Erie, just ahead of a Rangers-Otters game tonight, I thought, why not just start right there? Because when you entered the Ontario Hockey League, Derek, the Otters were a force. They were coming up on their first championship, and I'm sure you've got a memory or two about visiting that arena before the renovation and playing Brad Boyes and Corey Pecker and Carlo Koliakovo.
Yeah, I remember that. They had a great team. That was a tough spot to play. I remember that walk he kind of made entering the ice surface and getting booed and yelled at by all the fans. And they're passionate group of fans, and they had a great hockey team. I remember it was definitely battles walking in that building every night.
Speaking of Erie, we were on a walk with Dan Leibold last night, and your name came up. And he said, I can't tell you any stories. All I know is that Derek Roy came in as a boy and he left as a man. What does that mean to you, Derek?
I don't know. I think, definitely when I came in, I think I was probably 155 pounds, maybe, 5'8", 155 pounds, very small guy, and coming from a small town just outside of Ottawa, and coming to Kitchener, and then playing there 4 years, and then meeting all different people along the way, and winning a championship, and having that city rally behind us, and everything. I thought, and then even getting drafted, and going through the camps, the NHL camps, you definitely develop a lot quicker, and being a man leaving Kitchener was probably a good statement by Dan, for sure.
We're obviously going to get a chance to talk about that championship because it was the most significant part of your junior career. But how about as a kid from a small town coming into the Ontario Hockey League, and especially in a city like Kitchener, where the arena is large, you've got thousands of fans there. Like, was there a little bit of fish out of water moment for you?
No, I liked it. I felt like I embraced it right away. I felt playing in such a small environment in front of a couple hundred, and I even thought a couple hundred people was crazy at the time when I was 15 years old. And then I always embraced the challenge of the big game, the spotlight, whatnot, and just seeing that rink packed the first night, and even exhibition games. I was like, this is where I want to be, and this is what I want to do. So definitely embraced it and enjoyed every moment of it.
We all know you were quite the hockey player, but how were you at picking strawberries?
I somehow fell into a management position all right away because somebody quit. So they were like, "You seem like a nice guy. You want the management position?" So I was like, "What does that entail?" And then I had to make sure everyone was picking the strawberries in the right places and pre-selling boxes of strawberries before, and so that was my job right before I made the OHL. So I had a couple of jobs before, but that was just it was a funny to put it in from going to the strawberry patch to playing in the NHL. I felt like it was pretty funny.
It's a great bio.
Yeah.
Hey, better to be in a management position when you're strawberry picking than picking. That's backbreaking work, Royce.
No, it is. My brother was younger than me. So he's 6 years younger than me. So he was in that position of picking the strawberries. So we put Scott to work and made I'm like, hey, I need 10 boxes of strawberry. Get out there, start picking. So it was it was funny. It was a good job. I liked it and enjoyed it.
Not only did Scott have to actually do the hard labor, he had his brother as his boss, which I'm sure you were pretty easy on him.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of breaks, a lot of water breaks out there in the scorching heat. No, just kidding. He was he was great.
What was it like for you growing up, Derek? And because I heard you mention in another interview the role, obviously, and we hear this from so many players, that their parents played early on to foster that love of the game. What did the family mean to you in terms of developing you as a hockey player, even prior to the OHL?
Well, my dad stopped playing hockey before I was born, so I didn't get a chance really to see him play. But he was my coach growing up, and I have an older brother that was obviously he's just 1 year older, so we were on the same team from novice and just before novice. So my dad was coaching us until that time, I think novice, and then he just let us be on our own. But from having a brother that obviously you're going back and forth, playing in the driveway, playing on the outdoor rinks, going to see his games, following. So it was basically living at hockey rinks and playing any sort of hockey that we can get a chance to do. If we got 5 minutes, we're playing mini sticks. So that the whole background family thing, we played a ton of hockey growing up, and I think that's where you develop a lot of your little skills and work ethic. And I think having a family, and my mother obviously would drive us to hockey games all over the place. So give credit to my parents for sticking with us, and obviously through hard times and good times, and obviously the financial thing is the tough aspect of growing up playing hockey in a family where we didn't have that much means. So that's always have a special place for my parents, obviously, what they did for me growing up, and all the sacrifices they made, and that's why hockey families seem to be great families, nice and tight, and again, can't say enough about how good they've been throughout my life.
How often as a young kid would you go to a visiting rink or maybe a tournament, score a goal, and they'd announce your name, Derek Waugh?
Yeah, a lot, I think. Well, I mean, I went to French school my whole life, so my name was Roy in French, right? So growing up, I spoke French, and we were from a little French town. So then when I came to the OHL, the announcers were, "Do you want us to say Roy or Wah?" And I was like, like Wah is fine, like, and I guess it just kind of went from there. And then I have Patrick Wall. Obviously, people would say Wall all the time, so I'm sure he corrected some people throughout his life. So I think I just kind of stayed with that and let it go. And I don't think a lot of people even know I spoke French.
So wait, like your grandparents and parents, is it Wah or is it Roy?
Well, my dad's side of the family is all French, and my mom's side of the family is all English. So it kind of was in the middle. So my dad wanted me to obviously speak French. So we went to French school when we went all the way up through high school. And then when I went to Kitchener, I went to an English school. So I had to kind of make that switch. And then when I went back in the summer, I went back to my French high school. So I kind of had to try to plan all my school curriculum, try to plan it so it kind of falls into place where when I go back home, I'm doing French or English and whatnot. So it was pretty challenging in that.
What did you know about the Ontario Hockey League and the Kitchener Rangers when they selected you in the draft?
We knew Jamie McDonald. He was one of our coaches growing up, and so he had a son, Aaron McDonald, and he was my brother's age, so they played together growing up. So Jamie coached me, I think, in novice, and I think maybe in Adam. And so he's seen me kind of grow up through the auto ranks of hockey. And he really liked my game, and he really wanted me to play for Kitchener. And I thought it was just a nice, comfortable segue to go from a small town to, at least I know somebody over there, and he was saying he was going to play me a lot, and they were in a rebuilding stage, and it just seemed to be like a really good fit for me personally. So I think that decision was pretty easy, but I didn't know much about Kitchener before I got there. I just knew it was way bigger than where I came from. So, but obviously seen pictures of the stuff of the facilities and everything, and it seemed to be really nice. So I really want to go there, and it's pretty significant. It's close to home. I mean, there's not that much closer places than Belleville, Kingston, or Ottawa. So or a couple of Toronto teams. So it was kind of like right in the mix, and it was pretty easy decision for us and the family.
You came in with Steve Eminger, spent a lot of time with Steve, World Juniors, obviously the championship. What was that relationship like?
Oh, it was great. I think at the beginning was a little bit of more competition because you're the two young guys in the team, and see who's going to outperform who or whatnot. But then it just we became friends, and when he came back down from the NHL, because he went up early, and then we were so happy for him, and then when he came back down, and it was just awesome to have him back because he's obviously a great player, but a good friend as well. So I think having Steve push us over the edge to win the championship, but also just having him back as a friend was nice.
What did it mean to you when they put the C on your jersey in Kitchener?
I think it meant a lot. I think it was all the hard work throughout throughout my years playing in Kitchener, and I'm the kind of guy that came to the rink every day and try to be the best player at practice or in games or whatnot. I think that was my main goal was to go out on the ice and be the best player. And it doesn't happen every night, but if you have that goal in mind every night, most nights it's going to come true. So I think I was the last guy off the ice most of my career in the OHL. So especially my first 2-3 years, I was always the last guy off the ice. So it's one of those things where I think management saw the work ethic and the way I prepared for games and gave me the C, and it gives you a lot of leadership to lead your team out there every night and puts a little weight on your shoulders. But I was happy to take on that weight, and it happened to work for us that year, and we we're a great team, and we didn't really need to lead that much when you got guys like Mike Richards and Steve Emmingers and Greg Campbell's and even Scott Dickey, your goaltender, was talking a lot, and Clarkson. We had a bunch of guys that could lead. So for me, I didn't have to do much because we had such a good core group of guys, that Andre Benoit and guys like that. We had a core group of guys that just worked hard, and we were all in it for one goal, is to win it.
So if I can just follow that up real quick. Sorry, I know what a list.
Quite the team. I was
just no kidding. But it sounds like then it was leadership by example was your style. Was there a time that you felt like you had to stand up in that group and say something at a particular moment?
Well, yeah, there's always times throughout a season. I think you pick and choose your moments as a captain. You're not going to rah every single night, but I think times in desperate times you need to step up and say things. But most of the time, a lot of guys I led the way where I don't care how old you are, 16 or if you're 20. If you want to say something, stand up in the group, and go ahead and have your voice be heard. And I felt like try to treat everyone with the same amount of respect. If you're a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old, I gave you time of day and the respect that you deserve. You're on our team, and there's no guy more important than anybody else. So I think that's the way that we as a group kind of enjoyed our company with each other, and it was a fun season on and off the ice.
So just to let you know, we, as Farwell mentioned, we are in Erie. Farwell's up in our hotel room. I'm down in the lobby doing some work. And about 20 minutes before this podcast started, the Rangers walked by just wrapping up lunch. Brandon Murley walked by. He was in OA in your rookie season. Yeah. What was Merle's like?
Oh, he was great. I thought, he's one of my line mates throughout my first season. He was a very hard worker and a good hockey player. So, we had a lot of older guys that were very, very instrumental in my career. Like Serge Paille was one of those guys, and we had Ryan Milanovic and Alan Rourke and guys like that. So I think those guys were where I aspired to be as players, and so I wanted to try to model my game after some of them, and the leadership that Paille brought, and the fact that he went to the NHL the next year. Those are things that you see happen, and then you look at your game and you're like, if I just get a little bit better, I can be in the NHL. If he can make it, and he's worked hard his whole career, and you just see that once you see something happen to somebody, then you start dreaming yourself, well, this is possible. This could happen. So I don't think the first year you're not even thinking of the NHL. You're just thinking of how to play in the OHL, and how much of different, because I came from Bantam, so it was such a jump for me. So how do I fit in, and how do I play well, and how do I put up points, how do I succeed, and how do I have my team succeed and win some hockey games? That's going through your head, and then when you see somebody else go to the NHL, you're like, well, that's my next step. So I think that Murley was just a great leader, and good guy to be around. It's good that he's still with the organization.
What was it like playing for Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott?
Demanding, I would say. I think that's a good word to sum it all up. I think right away, you think you're working hard, and then they got a different level of work. And I know right away he came in and said, we're going to win the championship. And previously to that, my first 2 years, I only won one playoff game. So I was like, a pretty big step here that we're going to have to make to win it. So I think right away that it put it right in the back of our head that, okay, this is the goal now, as opposed to the goal before was make the playoffs, just make the playoffs, see what happens. This goal was far exceeding making the playoffs, was to win the whole thing. So, and the Memorial Cup, not just championship, and the Memorial Cup. So it got us kind of dreaming about it, got us thinking about it. And I think we made some big steps that season. And then the following season, obviously we made that the biggest step possible, is to win it all. So I think just instilling that work ethic and putting that picture of winning winning the Memorial Cup in the back of our head, that definitely sparked everybody and gave us an extra jump that we needed.
That year when you did accomplish your goal, at what point did you realize this is going to happen? And was it the Gregory Campbell trade?
That was such a big trade for us, and I've never met Greg until that point, and I met him at the World Championships, or the World Juniors camp in the summertime. And it was like, hey man, how's it going? And he's like, good. It's like, hey, my sticks didn't come in. You think I could borrow a few of your Easton synergies? And that was like the first conversation I think we had. And he was like, oh yeah, sure. Sure, man, you can borrow some of my sticks. So we had the same curve and everything. So that was the first. And I think I played with him. I don't think I played with another line mate the whole time. I think I played with him even in the All-Star game, at the World Juniors camp, everything. I played with Soupy, and he's a great man, and he was instrumental for my career, and we both helped each other get to where we wanted to be, and that was the NHL. And I even played with him one year in Rochester when I got sent down. He was part of the Florida group. Florida and Buffalo split times with their farm teams in Rochester. So me and Suvi got to connect back in Rochester on the same line again. So I think we just had a nice little chemistry going, where we didn't even need to talk to each other. We just knew where each other were going to be, and he was so easy to play with because his work ethic was incredible and still is. So that was such a big trade for us, and like you said, I think that sparked everything for sure.
That season, obviously it's 20 years ago now, and the last Memorial Cup that the Kitchener Rangers have won. They've appeared in one, but that's the last one that they won. So maybe that's why this part of the story takes on sort of the legend that it has here in the city of Kitchener for sure. But everybody talks about that 7-game West final versus the Plymouth Whalers. You come into the playoffs, you sweep the Sioux, you take care of Guelph in 5. The OHL final is a 5-game run over Ottawa, and then you don't drop a game in the Memorial Cup. But you had to go on the road down 3-2 in the West final to win in Plymouth and then come home for game 7 to wrap it up. Everybody says that going down to win game 6, they knew that if you won that game, it was over. What was the feeling, though, for the team making that trip to play Plymouth in that West final game 6?
I think it's nerve-wracking driving down there. You're just anxious to get the game started. I think, and then Spotter gave a great speech in the dressing room about, we're going to remember this day for the rest of our lives. We're going to take care of business tonight. We're going to win game 7 and win the Memorial Cup. And I feel like everyone believed in that. I feel like we played better than them during it was a tight series. They were a great team, but we felt we played better, and we still had more to give. So I think we beat them pretty good in game 6 because we were just so fired up to play that game after that speech, and having the confidence. You lose a game, you just relax. You're still confident. You're gonna win the series, and I think that's the same thing in Ottawa. I felt we lost the first game against Ottawa, but we outshot them like 2-1. And so we knew, I think we had 30 shots in the first period. So we knew like it was just going to break free and we were going to end up winning the series. So there was no panic. And I think that's the confidence that we had and in the group as individuals and as a team like this. So even losing that first game against Ottawa, we knew we were going to come back and win the series. So I think that, some teams have that, some teams don't. And I think that comes down to, like I said before, we had so many leaders in that dressing room that was, to overcome little things like that was pretty easy for us.
From that Memorial Cup, everybody obviously lifts the Memorial Cup, but the picture that I always remember is you hoisting with that huge smile on your face and you're staring up into the crowd. What was that? I'm sure you were staring at family. What was that moment like?
Yeah, it was really, really awesome feeling. So I remember before, I'm like, do I yell or what do I do here? So I don't even remember what came out of my mouth at the time, but it was it's a surreal feeling, and it almost feels like you're dreaming, because I always had that dream of lifting it up, because Pete put that in the back of our heads. And so I was dreaming about it a lot. And then for it to happen, it almost feels like you're dreaming it. So it feels like the moment goes by so quick and you're handing it to somebody else. So, but it was such a great feeling. And for me to lift it on behalf of the team at first was so special, but I also wanted to give it away right away because I knew everyone else deserved it and everyone else, fought just as hard, if not harder. And it's some guys been waiting so long for this as well that it was nice to hand it off to people and watch their faces and their enjoyment of it.
Who'd you give it to first and why?
I don't even remember. Like I said, like it was probably somebody like Steve Eminger. Like we've been there for 4 years trying to get this, and I don't know if there was anybody. I think maybe Scott Dickey was there for 4 years as well. I think those, like, it maybe goes by rank. I don't remember. I think I brought, or is either Greg or whatever. I don't remember, but I remember being in Kitchener and not winning winning one playoff game in your first 3 years to going and winning the Memorial Cup. I think you've been through enough hardship to lift the cup and enjoy the experience.
So here we are having this conversation. I mentioned earlier, it's 20 years since that championship. And in the meantime, you've played more than 700 NHL games. You've had the chance to represent Canada at various tournaments and won medals. You're basically just a year from officially announcing your retirement from the game. Has any moment along the way matched that surreal, dreamlike moment of lifting the Memorial Cup?
I mean, winning a medal at the Olympics or just being a part of the Olympics, I think was such a great feeling. And there was a surreal time at the Olympics when I was stretching in warm up, and I looked up at the crowd and I saw my family with Team Canada flags and signs and stuff like that. And I kind of looked over and peeked and saw, and I was like, wow, I'm at the Olympics. Like it didn't hit me until like that moment. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's put on a show and let's win this game. So I think that, those two moments, or the games we lost in Game 7 of the Stanley or conference finals, being on the ice during a Game 7 of that magnitude was unbelievable as well. And even the gold medal games, like playing at the World Championships, those are big moments that you always remember how you felt and how it went. But definitely when you end a season on a win with lifting the Memorial Cup, it's a surreal feeling that you think you got to come to the rink the next day. So you're because you didn't have that feeling, you didn't have that losing pit in your stomach. So you never want the season to end. So you're just like, hey, are we going to skate tomorrow?
Pete's like, yeah, bag skate, let's go.
Yeah, you still want to be a part of that group because like that's the last time you're gonna ever suit up together with that whole team together. So yeah, that was probably one, or if not the best feeling I've had in hockey for sure.
I know I mentioned this to you before, but Steve Spott has talked about wanting a 20th anniversary of that team. So we're not far from it. I'm sure if I'll tell him to call you, but whatever, you'll be part of this, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
You mentioned that bronze medal at the Olympics, obviously suffering the loss in the semifinal game. I've heard you talk about just how tough that was, but before the bronze medal game, did you echo a little Steve Spott from that game 6 in Plymouth in the dressing room for your pregame speech?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of help from Willie Desjardins. I think he was kind of giving me, I know you should go in there and say some things and give me a little pep talk before I went out and gave the boys the pep talk, So I was gonna say something anyway, so I knew something had to be said at that moment, and it was one of those where it's you don't want to regret it for the rest of your life that you didn't put your best foot forward because you feel bad from losing the night before, and it's really hard. I mean, you're working towards one goal and you don't get it, and now you have to battle back and work for your second goal. But I mean, I think everyone that left there and knowing the fact that they left with a medal, and put their best foot forward and played the best game that they could for their country. I think everyone did such an amazing job, and we came out of there with a bronze medal. And I've been on the side of losing a gold medal and winning a bronze medal, and I think winning a bronze medal feels better than losing a gold medal, because it takes you a while to get rid of that bad taste in your mouth from losing the gold medal. But when you win a bronze, you're celebrating. Nobody's celebrating silvers very much, so I think that's the only difference is you're walking in the dressing room and you're celebrating that you won a medal, as opposed to it takes you an hour or so to figure out that, okay, I still won a silver. I'm excited to bring some hardware home for my country, but pretty sour taste losing the gold medal, I'll tell you that.
You won 5 medals with Canada across different tournaments and stuff. Do you have them anywhere displayed, or you keep them in a safe?
I think there's the bronze medal up here, I think.
Oh yeah, let's see it. Oh,
that's fantastic.
That's cool. And a nice Ranger bobblehead too.
Yeah, I just got that actually when I came down for the coaching experience for the
nice
prospects.
That what you were just saying, Derek, about winning bronze and losing gold kind of speaks volumes, because losing gold means you still won silver, but you kind of, I don't know, it feels like going in the back door, right? You won it, but you won it because you lost that gold medal that you were pursuing. So it kind of speaks to the whole idea of what's the better feeling, like what sticks with you longer. Is it more fun to win, or is it more difficult to lose?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I lost 2 gold medals at the World Championships. I won a gold medal at the under 17, or sorry, under 18, and then under 17 I lost gold in the finals to Russia, and then I won a bronze. So yeah, it's a lot of different. I think winning bronze is a way better feeling than losing gold, because sometimes it doesn't, like the whole night you're just miserable because you just don't you don't want to accept that you just lost a hockey game. So I feel like I think we won every single game and going into the final game, those 2 world championships and that under 17. So I never really lost a round robin game. And then you lose the final and it's just so, it takes all your fun away that you've been winning and enjoying this moment for a whole month and a half that you've been together as a team, and then all of a sudden you lose one game and you're done. So yeah, it's a tough feeling, I'll tell you.
If we can go back to 2003 for a second, because a lot of people may not have been around during that championship run. I'm curious what it was like coming back to the city as champions when that parade's happening and the city and the region is going absolutely bananas.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, winning the championship at home was a really awesome feeling. And then you're going and coming back. They don't know if you're coming back with hardware. They don't know if you're gonna. So as we came back, we didn't really know what to expect, right? And then coming home and seeing that many people come out for the parade, and seeing all the support from the Kitchener fans, and it was great, especially at that age. We weren't expecting that, and it was my first parade, and it was great. I mean, we won a championship in Bern, and we had one as well. I think there was probably like 40 or 50,000 people there, so that was a little bit more. But I think the whole parade that they did, where you go down the street, it was a really cool experience, and especially at that age, you're only 19 years old. You're wanting more parades for the rest of your life. You just want to keep winning. So special moment for sure.
All right, I have to ask another question about that championship season, and I'm going to admit right now it's going to put you on the spot a little bit, but we've heard it told through other eyes. And in 2003, let's face it, there wasn't quite the same level of media coverage. So the story kind of came out in little dribs and drabs, and we've heard different versions of it. But since you were at the center of it, I'm going to ask you about it right now, because you and George Halkitis mysteriously ended up missing a few games. You were being punished by your head coach. Do you want to tell us why?
That was so tough. So long ago that we're not going to go into that. I'll tell you that. We were kids being kids, and that was probably it was obviously a mistake from us, and we said it. We addressed it to the team, and everyone right away forgave us as players, and they were just, you guys are great. You just had one lapse in judgment for 2 seconds. So it was, and we just went home and thought about it, and then obviously came back with even more peed off and with more of a vengeance, and finished off the season well. So we were really, we wanted to win the World Cup big time, and we didn't want anything to be a distraction. So, took our wounds and missed a few games, and there's nothing that could piss me more off than missing a hockey game. So definitely did the right thing by sitting me out, and then we came back even more with a vengeance.
It tells you something about how serious Pete was. He wasn't afraid to make an example of a star player.
Oh, 100%. I think for him to sit players and to not think about anybody else besides the team. He didn't care about what anybody else thought. He was going to do the right thing, and teach young guys a lesson, and it worked. I think worked for us as a team, but it also worked for us as human beings and as kids growing up, to learn a valuable lesson, and to move on and to be a professional.
We know Spotter was quite the prankster. Were you ever pranked by Spotter, or do you remember a good one?
Not really. He would come in and just rip on people, like joking wise, and just there was no comebacks. It was to the point where you're just like, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like you got me so good that I just have nothing left. So I think one time he told a joke to somebody, but it was one of those jokes that are just like, there's zero funny in it. He just wanted to see if you're gonna laugh, and I didn't bite, and a couple other guys didn't bite, but one guy just bit and started laughing like crazy, and he's like, well, what's the funny part of the joke? And the guy was like, I don't know. So he was testing him, and he failed miserably. And and I think he's like, okay, now I know who to tell a joke to, because he's gonna laugh every single time. So that was Spotter.
I think it still is Spotter. There's no question.
Oh yeah.
So from that success and climbing that mountain in the Ontario Hockey League, winning that Memorial Cup as captain of the Kitchener Rangers, a second rounder to the show with the Buffalo Sabres, what was your welcome to the NHL moment?
Welcome to the NHL. I think your first few games, you're just kind of like, it's a blur and things are going by and you're just trying to survive out there basically. And I think once I scored my first goal and cemented myself as, okay, now I scored a goal, because that was my job, was to score goals, and other guys might be fighting and other guys might have different things, body check or whatever. Maybe that was their welcome to the NHL. They hit some guy or got hit or whatnot. But for me, I think it was scoring my first goal, and kind of celebrating in the corner, and being, not knowing what to do. I didn't even know how to celebrate. I was just kind of skating around like, oh, what do I do now? So, but it was just it was such a good feeling. Now you're on the score sheet. Now you're trying to help your team win games. You're part of the game. So I felt like scoring my first goal was like, this is so cool and so surreal that I've been dreaming about this moment for my entire life, and it's finally happened. So I think that was my welcome to the NHL moment.
When you were sent down to Rochester after the lockout, I'm assuming that was the time Soupy was there, because you started off your time in Rochester with 20 points in 8 games, which is pretty astronomical. Did you go down there with the purpose of sending a message to the show that, hey, I don't belong here?
A funny story. It was actually 20 points in 7 games, and then I got called up after a 5-point night in Toronto, and I was like, okay, well, I'm called up. I'm going up there to prove a point. And they said, so I took my equipment home, dried it in the bathtub, did the old thing, and they said we're sending you flight itinerary in the morning. So I was waiting, just waking up early and sitting in my, finally called the PR people like, hey, when am I getting called up? They're like, well, we have a player that took a shot in the ankle. He might play tonight, so you might not get called up. So I was like, wait, what? So it was one of those where I'm like, how can I prove myself any more than I've already done, right? So then, and then I finally get a call in the afternoon saying I'm not getting called up to meet the team, and I think it was Long Island. And then, then I called my agent. My agent went bananas, and it was just one of those where, and he didn't want me to go play, so I had to go play that night. So I had to grab my equipment, and this is before like social media or anything. So I walked through the doors with my equipment, my sticks, and I was like, "What are you doing here? Didn't you just get called up?" And then I was just sour. I'm like, I'm not getting called up, and then all the guys are like, "Oh no!" So like, I'm throwing my equipment, just putting on a show, I guess, or whatever. Just young kid pissed off. So, and then played the game, and that's where I played my 8th game that game, and that was my last game. I played terrible probably, and was just thinking about not getting called up the whole time. So it just goes to show you, like, you never know what's going to happen, right? So but I should have just tried to keep my head and nose to the grindstone and work hard. But that's it's a tough story, and I think I'll always remember that, is the disappointment of getting called up and sent down in the same day and not even being able to prove myself. But I knew right when I got my chance that I have one chance to go up there, and I'm going to try to prove as much as I can. So as soon as I went up the next game, I try to give it 100% for the rest of my career up in the NHL. So yeah, those are learning moments that you do, ups and downs as a hockey player, and everyone goes through them. And it's part of being a professional athlete.
I love hearing that stuff now, Derek, when you look back on it 15 or so years later. But in the moment, that's got to be really tough. What would you tell a young hockey player today who's coming out of junior with all kinds of skill and all kinds of accolades, much like you, about adjusting to the pro game and maybe adjusting mentally as well as physically and on the ice?
Yeah, I mean, the physically on the ice is pretty obvious. You'll know where you're at as a player. You're not fast enough or not strong enough. You can work on those physical attributes in the summertime, but the mental part of it is the really hard. Because for me, I played 49 games and then got sent. I played all 49 games. I got called up, played 49 straight games, got sent down to the minors for the playoffs, which is completely fine. And we lost in the conference finals, and we had a great run and whatnot. And then the next year was the lockout. So for me, the mental part of that is I have to go play in the minors again. And I don't even have a chance to play in the NHL. And then coming out of my third season, thinking I'm going to start up in the NHL, but they had a bunch of guys on one ways and they had no spot for me. So I get sent down again. So that was tough because, it's now my third year and I've only played 49 NHL games because of the lockout and the first season. So, and then I get sent down again. So I could have easily have just said, screw this team, screw this, whatever, I'm not playing, blah, blah. But I said, I'm just going to go down there and light the lamp like no other. And then I scored 20 points in 7 games. So I think that was the best streak I've ever been on my entire life. So, but I was playing with Gregory Campbell. So obviously, I'm going to put up points because Soupy knows where I'm going to be at all moments of the time. So, and then we both kind of got called up, and that was our last stint in the minors. So, yeah, it goes to show you. I would say to a young guy, like, you never know. Like, it could take you 3, it could take you 4, it could take you 5 years, but if you keep working at it, keep working hard, and keep trying to get better every day, and you never know what can happen. And trusting yourself, I would say that was the biggest thing. Trusting your abilities and trusting yourself as a player. Because I think once you lose confidence, then it's really hard to get it back. So keep your confidence your whole career, and you'll do great things.
When you were in Dallas, you got to play with Yager. What was he like?
It was almost surreal playing with Yager. He was just a guy that you watch growing up and dominating the league for that many years, and I mean still playing now, which is kind of crazy to me. And he was so professional, where he'd come to the rink early and work out and stay longer and work out, or even come back at night and work out. And he kept himself in peak physical shape, but he had his ways. He knew, like, sometimes he didn't understand the drill, and that was his line mate, and he'd be like, I'm not doing this drill, I don't understand. So he would just stick handle in neutral zone, work on his game. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a full line drill. We need 3 guys, like, so it was, sometimes it was a little bit, it was funny the way he did things. He had his things that he's done forever. I think he would bring his sticks back on game days and back to the room and tape them and get them ready, and through the afternoon, as opposed to everyone would just go and eat and sleep. So he was very, I'll tell you what, that guy loves hockey. He loves the game of hockey. He loves scoring goals. He loves winning hockey games. So, he was a great guy to have on our team, and we enjoyed it.
In a similar vein, do you remember the face-off you won from Mario Lemieux?
Yeah, I do. I remember him standing straight up, not caring about winning the draw, and I was hunched over, wanting to snap it back as hard as I could. And I came across so hard, and he was looking at me like, "What are you doing, kid? Like, you could take the draw, man." Like, he was like, "Don't worry, I'll get the puck back later and score a goal anyway." So, it was for me, it was the moment. I think that was the only face-off I ever took against him. So I was so excited to take a face-off against Mario Lemieux and say I beat Mario Lemieux in a face-off, because obviously I couldn't beat him anything else. And he was such a special hockey player, and growing up and speaking French and watching him play, he's just a good mentor and great hockey player, and he's probably one of the best that's ever played the game, for sure.
Was he the best player you ever played with or against?
I mean, I played against him really late. Like, I played when I played against some guys like Marc Messier and Mario Lemieux and guys like that. They were towards the end of their career. So it's hard to say. Like, Mario in his prime, different story. Yeah, like, it's really hard. It's really hard to judge a guy when he's, I think that was his last season. And he came back from cancer and everything. So before all that ever happened, yeah, he's probably the best player to ever play. I never played against Wayne Gretzky, but I'm sure he would have been crazy to play against. That would be so surreal. And even kids coming up now playing against Crosby's and kids 10 years from now playing against McDavid, they're going to be like growing up watching him play and finally get to be a chance to play against him is pretty surreal.
You idolized Forsberg as a young hockey player. You had a chance to play against him. What was that like for you?
Yeah, we had me, Chris Drury, and Mike Greer's job in the playoffs, the first round against Philly, is to check Peter Forsberg, Mike Knubel, and who's the third? Was it Gagne, Simon Gagne? So we were like, well, that's a pretty big task, and this was my first playoffs, my third. That was my third year in the league, or third pro season, and to play against him was amazing. But to be able to check him and to be able to try to stop him from scoring was pretty awesome as well. I was trying to get under his skin a little bit, but he was such a big, strong, like power forward that getting in his way, he'd just run you over. So yeah, that was fun, and we won the series, and so we did our job, and it was a fun experience to try to check him for sure.
You went overseas and, as you mentioned, won a championship with Bern. You scored the championship winning goal. What was your time like over there?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think at the start you don't know what to expect because I played in Bern before in the World Championship, so I knew what the town was like, and I knew everything about Switzerland. Switzerland's such a beautiful place, and but I didn't know much about the league. And to go there and see how good the players are, and to be welcomed by that team, and we had such a great bunch of guys, and to go out and win the championship. We had so many injuries, ups and downs all year, and to go out and win it, and then to score the game winner at the end was just a great feeling. And we all went to our team went all to Barcelona. We had a team trip at the end of the season. We all went to Barcelona to celebrate. So, it was just a great experience. And I was telling people, if you ever had a chance to, at the end of your career, to prolong it for a few years overseas, it's just it's a great way to cap your careers off, and families do it all the time, and they love it, and it's a great experience for kids and wives and families, and to be part of a different team and organization. They really welcome Canadian and American and players from all over with open arms.
When you talk about the injuries that the team had and the ups and downs, it just makes me think back on your career again, Derek. And it was relatively early on. I know you're still in Buffalo. I think it was lower body, but you missed a chunk of time. Either way, how many times were you out there trying to battle through something at less than 100%?
Well, yeah, that was tough. I was finally playing at a really good level in the NHL. I had like maybe 3 good seasons in a row, and then I was really trying to like ramp my game up, and I had a great start, and I think I had a point a game that year, and then I got pushed from behind in the boards, and I severed my quad tendon, so the tendon like tore, so they had to go in and sew it back up, and I had to be in a mobilizer for 8 weeks. I wasn't able to move my leg. So that was tough because I've never been hurt before, especially I never had surgery or never had anything longer than 2 games or something. So it was being sidelined really sucked. And then, but I worked through it, worked my way up, and I was going to, because we had the first round in playoffs against Philly, and if we won the series, I was going to start the second round, and I got hurt after Christmas, so that would have only been like 4.5 months recovery until playing, which is, if you put 2 months in a mobilizer, 2 months back playing a playoff game is pretty tough. So then we had a few injuries in game 6, so I was just like, all right, I'm going, I'm playing, let's go. And I played game 7, but I wasn't very effective or very, very good. And I mean, we lost game 7, so that was kind of kind of brutal, but it gave me a little bit of motivation going into the next year. So I went into the next season, and then I kind of hurt myself in the summertime working out. I hurt a disc in my back, and then that summer my shoulder came out in training camp. So it just kind of snowed. So then I had shoulder surgery that off season. So I played the whole season with a bad shoulder, and then I had off season shoulder surgery. So it just kind of was one of those things that just it was like 2-3 injuries in a row. So I'm working on my disc, and I'm working on my shoulder, and then like working on my leg. So you just kind of compound injuries, and it's really tough to come back from, and you're doing as best as you can to be a professional and come back from these injuries. And sometimes it just your body just says no. So going over to Europe was towards the end of my career was tough playing because it's so physical and everything. Going over to Europe and playing less games and getting healthy, and we get a little more time off over there. You get just some more breaks. So that definitely was a lot easier on the body as opposed to grinding out 82 NHL games with playoffs. So I say there's a lot of players that are not 100%, and it's hard. It's definitely hard, but because you want to play, you want to help your team out, you want to perform, or even guys they want to stay in the league. So it's hard not to play at 100%.
What was the craziest thing you saw in your time in the KHL?
Craziest?
Or just any good story, really.
Any good story? I don't know. That's a tough question. I think I thought it was pretty good. Overall, I think everyone was really nice, and I felt like it was very professional league. It was ran very professionally, so I didn't really have that many crazy stories. But the one thing, one story was really weird. Was I got so I was with Team Canada at the Deutschland Cup, and we're playing this tournament mid-season. They always have these international kind of tournaments to prepare for the World Championships and everything. And I was playing with Team Canada, and right before the game, we were going to pregame meal, and Paul Shahura, who played in Tampa, played in the NHL a little bit, and he was playing in Chelyabinsk, and he's like, "Royce, I think you got traded to our team," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Man, I don't know. My PR guy just called me, said, tell Royce welcome to the team, and ask him what number he wants." And I was like, so I call my agent, who's a Russian agent. So we had our agency, Octagon, had agencies they work with in Russia. So I talked to, I finally get a hold of him because it took me forever. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you got traded." So I was like, "Wait, what's going on right now?" So then the team calls me and they say, "After the tournament, we want you to come directly with Paul to Chelyabinsk because we got a game that night." So we landed at like 6 or 7 in the morning or whatever, but we had to play. So we're coming from Germany. And I was like, "Well, I don't even have a jacket with me because it's warm here in Germany and it's minus 20 over there in Siberia." So that was interesting. So I had my wife with me at the time, and I was like, "She's like, what? She got to go? Should she come directly there? All my stuff's in Omsk, right?" So then I had to. She had to fly to Omsk, take the Trans-Siberian train, jam it full of our stuff, take the train to Chelyabinsk overnight. And so I had to play the game that night and then pick her up the train. So it was a tough for us. And then I got there, and all my credit cards and bank was all opened up and ready to go with my name on it and everything. And I kind of found that out was pretty weird because I never even poked my head in the bank. All of a sudden I got all these credit cards and a bank opened, and it was a non-sanctioned bank in Canada and the US. So we had to take our money and transfer it to Spearbank, which we can then transfer it overseas. So it was like little things like that. Those like happen all the time. And on the way home, when we picked up my wife, we got in a little fender bender, and it was just kind of like compounding stuff. It was, and then the guy just gets out, gives him cash. So, sorry, I hit some ice and hit you, and just gave him cash. And our driver, we drove away, and I'm just like, she's like, what is happening right now? Like, I'm like, man, I don't like, this is like the last 2 days have been crazy right now. So it was, but all in all, great experience. I think, I didn't want to be that guy. Like, what if I went over to Russia, or, what if this wasn't for me? So we decided, let's just go. And that way there's no what ifs. And then, but overall, I thought I had a great experience, and, some stories like that to tell. And, now we have no regrets or anything. So.
That's absolutely fantastic. And maybe your wife deserves one of those medals on the shelf behind you, because come on, Royce.
Well, we weren't married at the time, so that kind of pushed it over the edge. No,
absolutely. Yeah. No choice after that, eh?
There's a ring out. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, before Poper has his inevitable last question, I want to get one more in, and I want to take it back to Buffalo, because I'm going to be honest, and in my adult life, I have poked fun at the city from time to time. However, I don't think there is a more passionate fan base in all of sport, hockey, football, you name it. What was it like playing for those fans in Buffalo?
I thought it was an amazing experience. I loved it. I loved every experience, everything about it. I thought the city was great. The atmospheres were great. I think what happened was at the start, like we're not the Bills in Buffalo, right? So they get, even if they're winning or losing, they still would pack the house, right? As opposed to my first year in the league, they weren't very good before that, but then they had those early cup runs in the late 90s, I want to say, or mid 90s, and then they had a couple of bad seasons in a row, didn't make the playoffs and whatever. And then I think they made that Drury trade. They picked up Briere. They started making some moves. They made some great trades and some great draft picks. Ryan Miller, Palmville, Gosted, all these guys, Vanek. So it kind of like everything started to build, and then it seemed like every game, it seemed like there was more and more and more fans, and it was just starting to build towards something. And it started getting so crazy that we couldn't even go to like pregame meals. Like we'd have to like they would give us a car to the garage, and we'd have to drive underneath to go eat, because it was just too many fans to sign on. We'd be there for hours and hours signing autographs for 5,000 people outside the restaurant. So it was such a cool experience, and everyone was so nice, and it seemed like such a big community, but small at the same time, because everyone knew each other, and everyone was very respectful and nice. And I think losing in the conference finals like 2 years in a row, that kind of wasn't fun, because we knew we wanted to really give back to the city of Buffalo for them being such great fans, and such nice people, and just hardworking, blue collar type people that'll do anything for their sports teams, and they stick through it. They haven't. I think this is the longest drought. They haven't made the playoffs in NHL history. I think I read something. So I think they're going to have to do something to turn around that organization. But when they turn around, that arena is going to be full again, and full of life, and I'm excited for that day, because the fans really deserve it.
I actually have, excuse me, 2 quick questions for you. And I know Farsi. One, I can't believe Mike didn't ask you, but you played with Jay McKee, who used to coach here. We actually had him on this podcast right over there, actually. Do you have a good cheese story for us? Because after the mic got turned off, he told us some beauties. So I'm wondering if you have a good cheese story.
Oh, cheese. Yeah, he's man, he actually asked me if I wanted to help coach in Kitchener. But at the time I was still playing. I think I was thought 5 or 6 years left in me until I retired. So I'd obviously say no, but he's, he was like an unbelievable guy, but also just a great teammate and such a warrior. I've never seen a guy block so many. Like I never seen anybody enjoy blocking shots as much as this guy had. Like he would actually block shots and like go out and block, like fully put his leg out and kick save a puck in practice. And you're just like, hey man, just let me get one shot through, bud. Like he had the widest shin pads of all time, and he had these big shot blockers on his feet, and he's such a great guy that for him to have him on your hockey team was unbelievable, and for him to miss that game 7 because of a staph infection, that was so tough for us as a team. It was such a big blow. We already had, I think, 4D out of the lineup, and then we lost him. So it was just obviously a huge blow, but he's just a great leader that we needed, that presence for game 7.
All right, so that's a great segue to my second question, because you mentioned that you were just in Kitchener for the Top Prospects game. I spoke with Mike McKenzie before this podcast, and he said you were great and lots of good stories. He also mentioned that, Nancy and Huxley might want to get you out of the house because, you're at home now, a new father. I'm curious if coaching, maybe in the future and maybe around Waterloo, Cambridge, somewhere in between those two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it was a good experience. I thought I kind of wanted to go soak it up, and the guys really let me in the room with with Merles and with Wides and those guys, and then just kind of be a part of that, the whole kind of in the day of a life of a coach was really cool to see what happens behind the scenes, because obviously you played so much that you're always like, oh, if I was a coach I would do this, or why didn't the coach do that, and then you get the other side of it and you're like, you know what, like it's a lot harder than it looks. So it's it was a great experience, and I don't know if I'll be coaching, we'll see, but I think to have the other side of the spectrum, and now to know that it's harder than it looks, maybe players will take it easy and stop chirping coaches and behind their backs in the locker room, and because it is a tough job, and there's so many moving parts that as a player you're just focused on your one thing. What do I got to do when I get on the ice? As a boats coach, you got to kind of take in everything and all the information you're getting, and then project what you think you should do as a team to win the hockey. And so, yeah, it was a cool experience. I enjoyed it.
Royce, if something like that were to come to pass, they'd probably throw another parade for you in this town, just so you know.
Oh yeah.
Until you lost your first game. Other than that, it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. You lose your first game. All right, fire him. Get him out.
I'm curious. I know to add one more. I'm just curious. When in the past, everyone likes to talk about the greatest Ranger of all time. When your name's mentioned in that conversation, what do you think about?
Yeah, that it's such an honor. I think coming in as a 16-year-old and trying to make my mark. I was not expecting to, lead the team in scoring my first year, and then after that, then expectations are so high that I was, I had to live up to them, and I obviously wanted to. That's my job, is to score goals and set up plays, and like my job wasn't to hit fight guys, but so I knew I was at some point going to do it, and I didn't think it was going to happen. I was hoping it would happen early, but I couldn't have pictured a better season to start. But obviously it's harder when you're going on a really, really good team, and let's say you're a 16-year-old coming in on a Mem Cup team. It's hard to make that much of an impact, as opposed to playing on a team that you get more ice time, you get more looks, more shots, you get a chance to improve yourself, and I always figured if we lost, I always put it on my shoulders. It was because I didn't play well enough, or it's because I wasn't prepared enough, or whatever. So I'd rather take the blunt of anything, and then next game I step up a little bit more and play even better. So that was the way I approach things, and to be looked at as one of the best, and it's pretty amazing that there's so many good hockey players that went through that system, and even to be recognized and put in some of those names is great.
And well, when you put an effort like that in, it comes across as very well deserved to be in those conversations. This has been great to catch up with you. Thanks a million for making the time for us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I had a blast. Appreciate it.